As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the town YouTube. We ask that those attending over Zoom keep their cameras off and microphones muted if they're not involved in the discussion. And to use the raising hand feature if you would like to speak. For those speaking in person, please do so towards the meeting microphones. Before you make your comments, please state your name and the street that you live on for record keeping purposes. I ask that those in the room remain quiet unless they are involved in the discussion. If this meeting is interrupted, we will immediately end the Zoom and send a new link via email. I don't know if you can go back to you, Mr. Mayor.
And I'm turning it over to our distinguished council president.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first item on the agenda is one that we requested to go back on the agenda, which is the revision of the stormwater ordinance. We identified a problem, which is that we allow no plan needed for up to 150 square feet, and then a plan needed at 151 square feet. And our rules are quite tight, so there's a lot you have to do to comply with that plan at 151 square feet. So it's a cliff going from 150 square feet. Suddenly, you've dropped into a major thing that you have to do. So the idea is to make it more of a gradient from 150 square feet so that it steeps up what you have to do. That was the thought, and that was the thought, I think, behind Ron's suggestion in his revision, where he was breaking it into, I think, 4 steps and saying that, including the 0 step, but with growing size of rain garden with each gradient up from 150 square feet. We were concerned with that because rain gardens are not suitable for all properties. Soil is wrong for them in some places. Sometimes you're at the bottom of a hill and doesn't work at the bottom of a hill. And so the question is then, well, how do we create that gradient? And that's where we left it. So that's a summary. And I expect your brilliant thoughts now. Are you ready? So. Anybody with suggestions?
I think the gradient is a good idea because I think we capture some of the issues we've noticed for a couple of residents. I don't know if we're being too prescriptive with this, but in some ways that just simplifies it for folks. And if we want to list other acceptable devices, I think we could talk about a collection thing. What we can do.
All right.
And Mr. Chair, may I just add quickly that the draft I put together that's before you was just meant to get the discussion started. So I used the rain garden sizing criteria from the Montgomery County Rainscapes program. But again, that was just to get the conversation started. I don't pretend to be a stormwater engineer. And you'll see in the note that I was thinking you might think about other options too. In addition to rain gardens, there may be other gradiated devices that you would accept. And maybe that's a question for our stormwater engineer. What else would be out there other than a rain garden where we could say 150 to 200, you can do this and that, and so on. I hope that helps. Thank you.
I mean, we could hand it to our stormwater engineer and say, create a gradient and see what he comes up with. But, maybe we should give him some pointers is really where I am. Great silence.
I don't have any.
Councilor Heller, don't you have something to say?
I just think the simpler we can make this, the better.
Right.
That's where I stand. So someone like me could understand it when they read it.
Right. So for someone with making an addition of 150 to 500 square feet of impervious surface, this lays out clearly criteria that they can meet to satisfy the stormwater requirements. How they have to offset that impervious material. So I think that's great. And maybe we just leave it with the rain gardens as a sample, and then if people want to propose something else, we can indicate they can propose something else. I don't think we need to force people to spend $10,000 on engineers for a small project.
Really, for example, a rain garden, it says any other acceptable devices, and by question mark there. The only thought I'd have is that we make something like, I don't know, 150 to 300 square feet. Landscapers' advice, we recommend that you mitigate stormwater damage. We don't require that you mitigate stormwater damage at 300 square feet. We require it, but we require that you get landscapers' advice on what you can do, something like that. As the only other suggestion that I could come up with.
I don't like the idea of saying, go talk to your landscaper. That's really. Yeah, okay, I'll talk to my landscaper. He said everything's fine. I think it's even more formal than that.
Well, but I mean, at the same time, it's like really, the intent and like the design of some of these stormwater management measures are for pretty much full tear downs and like gigantic renovations. And, to have just a small addition on your house, where you're not tearing it down and building it to all four corners and all of the things like, I mean, I don't know, I mean, I do think that it maybe could be like a, just try to do something, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's a bigger deal when, the impact on our neighborhood comes from when these houses, have all this impervious surfaces that have been added with garages in the back and driveways and huge houses on these lots, and then they accumulate on top of each other, and then what we're left with is total street runoff and flooding issues. And so a modest renovation to me isn't quite as, not necessarily as big of a deal, I guess.
Except we had these problems before we built the total renovations. I know it personally, when I moved in, I had a river running through my backyard and into my basement.
Yeah.
And and there were no renovations on the block then, so. These are old problems made worse by
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, the houses back then were built with no stormwater mitigation plan at all, so it's hardly surprising that there's flooding.
500 square feet, would that be half of this room?
Be less,
Less than half of this room.
don't you think? Am I wrong? No, maybe, yeah.
What's can we?
Oh, God.
Square feet or something like that?
10 feet by 10 feet is 100, so it's 500 square feet is pretty big.
500 square feet to me, half of this room would be a reasonable estimate. I mean, what we are saying is that we want to exempt impervious surfaces up to 500 square feet.
Up to some level, not necessarily 500.
Like
square
300.
feet. Yeah.
Well,
right.
so the first question is 500 the right level?
No, I mean, my suggestion was that we have a recommendation up to say 300, let's say 300. And then we require it beyond that, is the thought.
Well, one would be sort of, what is that upper limit?
Sure,
Here
yeah.
it's up 500, but we want to decide that because, at some point, it feels like it's a small size enough project that it can mitigate stormwater through other means that are more small scale in nature.
Right.
So that's level one. Level two is then, do we need to say how they mitigate? And then, in the code, we don't need to say, go talk to your landscaper, we probably want to be very clear what we want them to do. So that's the second question. Do we want to be very clear if it's a small scale?
Okay, I mean, first of all, small scale, we can define it here, but I mean, if we agree on 300, fine, or 250, it doesn't matter, but the issue is how clear can our guidance be? The problem is that landscapes vary around the town substantially. And so it's very hard to have consistent, clear statements, but there's a rain garden, which won't work in some places, is what it boils down to. You might say plant trees, and that's great, but if they've already got a yard covered with trees, because they need to do that, So in other words, it's all very context dependent. Is
Well,
what
we
it comes
could
down to.
say for projects, 300 square feet or 500, we should decide that, I don't know where it is. Or less, we want commensurate sort of, mitigation efforts. That could include any of the following: rain garden, planting trees, planting media. As long as they are described to us in a hearing as I am attempting to mitigate the impact of this impervious surface and I'm doing these three things. So we want to hear that, right? We probably want to hear that they are trying to do something. That would be where my mind is going in this work session. I think that's probably better than just saying you're exempt. Given the general intent that we have. I think the goal of this is they don't end up spending a lot of money on overly sophisticated and complicated methods. But we keep the sort of sense of our interest in this, which is try to mitigate, there is only going to be impact, try to mitigate it somehow. Do some plantings, plant a tree, do some do something, but explain to us in a council hearing that it matches this impervious surface.
So provide a landscaping plan that mitigates the,
Exactly, that,
Runoff.
is a reasonable mitigation of stormwater implicated in this.
that could include rain gardens
That
or
could
other
include rain garden,
devices,
could
yes.
include plantings, exactly.
I mean, again, like now I'm kind of contradicting myself, but like, yeah, I mean, at the same time, I guess like anyone who is adding this on to their house will have, probably be talking about it as part of the plans of, what they can do for their own lawn too. So I guess it's not really, that much of an added increase.
Exactly. I think exactly. I think what we consider as small would be worth defining, and I needed to visualize that. That's why I was wondering if it's half of this room or whatever, because we would need to understand that if someone is adding 500 square feet footage of impervious surface, what does that visibly look like? Would be good to know, and whether is that the demarcation for us?
I think that's too high,
I
myself.
think so too. I think that is
I
too
think this is
high.
about 500 square feet, this room.
This room itself. is
Yeah, I mean, we just had that screen
Thousand.
porch, like they're making a
Close to
200
1,000.
square foot screen porch. You have a screen porch, right?
I do,
Do you know how big it is?
I don't, if I could ask.
I mean, I think that like 200 maybe.
Yeah, I think I think 200 to 300 range sound right to me. But again, I would want us to ground it in something, but that sounds right to me.
How about we settle on 250 then, between
Well,
200 and 300?
well, I
No,
think
no, it's not all straight
that
up.
the town attorney can research and see what's.
Exactly. We can ground it in perhaps other jurisdictions or some other data that gives us some. basis
what-
for it.
I mean, I can tell you because the Stormwater Committee did look at this, and other jurisdictions are all over the map in terms of what they decide is the cutoff for when the mitigation is mandatory. Everything from, 100 square feet to 300, 400 square feet. They're all out there as examples. So we won't get a definite answer from scanning other jurisdictions. The Stormwater Committee already tried that and came up with a 150 in the end.
I mean, I would be comfortable, 300 sounds right to me, and I would be comfortable then saying, present a commensurate plan, as you said, landscaping plan that has these options, that mitigates the stormwater implication. That would be the added sentence, no table, no tiering, none of that.
Yeah.
So anything up to 300 feet, please you're exempt from this other requirement and give us something that tells us you're doing something about the stormwater. Would be the spirit.
All right, Steve, where are you? You're silent at the moment.
Well,
I guess I'm reconsidering my earlier comment about the experience we've had. So we've had this in place. I'm aware of one resident who's brought a project forward through the council. And my recollection is there were many complaints voiced, but then after we explained that we weren't looking for a formal study, all of a sudden it came to the next meeting, we passed it. So are we talking about correcting something that's not really an issue that needs to be corrected?
Yeah, maybe we should just leave it.
Well, does it require, did we need to change anything in the code to make that smoother next time around? I guess that's the spirit of this.
I mean, I don't want us to be, oh, if it's only 200 square feet, don't worry about it. It won't matter. You know, I mean, that's not the way we should handle it. Surely.
Yeah, right now the trigger is 150 square feet.
Right.
Town of Chevy Chase is 700 square feet for their plan.
Yeah. And you'll see numbers varying on other different ones.
What about Chevy Chase Village?
They may not have it.
They don't, as I recall, they don't have a specific trigger or a specific water drainage ordinance. They just have a permit requirement that at the time of application, an applicant must demonstrate that there's no adverse impact on neighbors. I believe that's their requirement. Last I checked, it's been a couple of years since I checked that.
But you
They're
can
not a
check.
client of mine.
You can check.
Yeah.
The issue is whether you want to ask him to draft something.
Yeah, well, we're trying to reach there.
Right.
There's some of the councilors saying just these things alone at the moment. We've only had one resident complaining. And they did have a hard time.
Robin, would it be useful to hear from staff if there's anything that they would recommend? The example that Steve brought up in the previous case, anything your experience dealing with that could improve.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of like, kind of mentioned, this kind of, the reason that we're talking, you all are talking about this at all is because there is this issue of small scale projects having to do a formal process, and it's prohibitively expensive compared to the actual cost of the project, which is kind of the impetus again for potentially carving out an exception. They don't have to go through that whole process.
Does our code require a formal study? Or any formal documentation?
Yes, it requires a stormwater drainage plan.
A plan.
Yeah.
I could take out a napkin and draw a plan. I mean, we could add the word informal plan or under.
But we then review that using Balin.
Yes.
So,
But yeah, oops.
go ahead, Rob.
There is requirements for the plan. The plan has to be designed in accordance with the criteria in the code. And that was the residents' concern, that in order to design it in compliance with the code, I have to have an engineer. Because the engineer's got to determine the retention and what devices are appropriate.
Well, part of it too, is how the code's currently written is, the code recommends certain, stormwater management devices over others. And so, they have to, as the code is now, they have to go with environmental site design first, which is why then they have to get special justification that they want to do a dry well is because of, our code is written as well. We have a tiered system.
Give me just a moment.
Yeah, if they go with a dry well, they have to explain why ESD, environmental site design, is not possible.
How about this, which is that we come up with something that for the up to 300 square feet, which is come up with a plan that demonstrates no adverse effect on neighbors, which is borrowing Chevy Chase Villages, and includes any of, and this is where we get our landscaper Kelly, what's her name's advice in terms of the kinds of things that you can do. Plant trees, yes, a rain garden, conservation landscaping, flower beds with, use natural plants, all that kind of thing. She's good at that. It would be a tiny contract for her. And see if that would fly. It's got to be something simple that the owners can do themselves that doesn't require an engineer.
I'm comfortable with that, in the sense that we create some carve out for small project without making it complicated.
EJ, could you ask?
Right, but I don't have any scientific basis for it.
Oh, it isn't then. So I would support a carve out like you're describing for 150 to 300 square feet for a smaller. And then we can see how it goes.
Yeah, agreed.
We should be flexible.
Could you ask Kelly? If you do that?
Yep.
Thank you. All right. We all happy with that, so we can go on. All right, if just looking at the phone, we must be happy. All right. The next item is the updated Montgomery County State Delegation Letter, and that's been updated since the update.
Yeah, this is the most.
This is the most recent version now.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, EJ, for including the most recent in the package, which I sent to him today. So the town of Chevy Chase has spearheaded this effort and has been somewhat of a challenge to make sure we have text that's acceptable to all 11 of our signatories. We think we have that now. Garrett Park and Chevy Chase Village had made some comments, and they both reported back that this current draft is acceptable to them. You'll note that the changes that are made just make the letter a little more general. At this point, some jurisdictions have noted that they've not yet digested the full attainable housing strategies presentation from the county and discussed it with their residents. So some are not yet in the position to indicate in the letter whether they have a position yet, which I think is a fair point. So we're just removing language to indicate that any positions yet been taken. Everyone agreed before and currently on the actual substance of the letter, the proposed text that's to be submitted to the delegates for a hopeful introduction of a bill this next regular session in January. And I talked to the mayor today. We'll reach out to one or more of the delegates and try to set up a meeting to discuss this with them face to face.
All right, so the changes do not impact the central piece of this letter, which is the request to the legislature to make sure that our town codes apply to all kinds of residential homes in our towns. At the moment, there is language in the text that says it applies to single-family residential houses. At the time, that was all we had, and therefore it didn't matter that it said that, but it matters now. And so the idea is to take the single family out so that it covers all kinds of residents in the town. That's what it's about. And as I said, the changes that have been requested by these other municipalities do not affect that language. It's still there. The changes are basically deleting some extra text that was meant to show that we were not against multiple family houses, and that's a concern that they haven't discussed that with their own residents, and therefore they don't know the position of their towns. Are we still okay with this? That's what it boils down to.
I think this is a brainer.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
And I only hope that the legislature will go, of course. This makes sense.
Right, okay, so we're all still okay with it, and that's fine. All right, then.
A quick question, Ron, do we believe this is a tall order? Do we believe, Ron, that this is a tall order for this amendment to actually happen? Or let me phrase it a different way. What's our sense of the challenges we might face for this amendment to actually?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't expect it should be difficult for the delegates to appreciate. Mayor Lane has had discussions with their district delegates, Shetty, Solomon, and Kaufman, and I think there's, understanding of why this is needed, and it doesn't seem to be too controversial. That, as you know, the delegates did suggest that we add language that would reflect that our regulations, while at this point we obviously intend to treat all housing fairly, that there actually be legislation to reflect we can be less strict on multifamily. So we've, included that text in the ask at the delegate's suggestion.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We talked to our representatives.
Well, we're gonna meet with them.
When?
That's what Ron and I talked about.
Okay,
And the chair of the delegation.
okay.
Yeah. Carmen, Wallach, and Warman.
But we're also gonna meet. And we can meet with Senator Love but we also should meet with the chair of our Montgomery
Who's
delegation
that?
from Rockville. Her name escapes me. She's been on the Rockville City Council.
Okay. Wonderful.
All right, so we're all okay with it and we can therefore let Mayor Lane know we're all okay with this.
I will. I'll do so right now. Thank you.
Okay. The next item is the new resident letter, which has been updated, and EJ can take us through that.
Yes, so this was brought to the last work session. At the time, it started out as more a letter to realtors, but then it was adjusted to be a letter to newcomers in general, the kind of hopefully that we would ask for them to give to prospective buyers or people who are closing on their homes. And so the letter was made to be a bit more representative of Somerset as a whole and more friendly and less official. So here's the most recent draft. Happy to take any feedbacks and for further edits.
I would do one thing. In paragraph 4, the last sentence where it says, a permitting process separate from the county for all construction projects is outlined in our town code. I would bold that. Because I think that's, this is a lot of information. People might, just sort of like race through it. But that's really something that we've learned is really important, I think, that people don't realize. And this just, gives them a little extra oomph.
Absolutely. And I think we should add some line about a ban on gas powered leaf blowers. I've noticed
Oh.
a resurgence in use of gas powered leaf blowers in at least our corner of the
Oh,
town.
dear.
It's only one
Okay.
place.
No, like four different towns, different landscapers. they're-
When is the Montgomery County ban?
I think,
Soon.
yeah, I think
January?
it's this coming year, it's a ban on sale, and the next year it's a ban on use. So 25 is a ban on sale, 26 is a ban on use.
I agree with Debbie that some way to, maybe even sections. Amenities. Our own code, something that really highlights.
I would format this a little, and I know this is just on our computers, but I would just take it out and format it a little more user-friendly to read, that's all. And the bolding of that one
But
line.
it's very good.
It is great.
And it covers everything.
Yeah.
And there's
lots
very
of
nicely
numbers.
done.
I think it is a welcome addition. I think it's useful.
Yeah.
And so that's it. And yes, I'm happy to agree to Debbie's suggestion that we bold the permitting process.
You didn't put a line and say please don't happen.
Should we-
Why don't you do that? Do it at the newcomers party.
Can
That
we put this on the website too?
That's what it would go on the website as well. Yeah.
Yeah, like, really bold the townofsomerset.com website to get all sorts of great information.
There should be a video of you on the
And
welcoming.
they can figure it out.
Like, here are the rules, and then we'll just layer, like a running scroll.
We could have you star in the video.
Maybe we should put it as a song.
Like,
Songs.
and on
You're already
page-
dancing.
On page 1000, you'll find.
Right.
We have more.
referring to page 573, which refers to page 82.
So
Okay,
you don't need a formal approval.
So I think that Ron wants it approved at a council.
Understood.
Haven't you always suggest, first of all, you've reviewed this, right?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Okay, so you've always said that you want it to be approved by the council, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So now you
Well-
have 3 people.
Okay, then we've got to put it up for our October meeting, so do we agree to put it up there for October meeting? Yep, everybody does, all right, so
Minor.
the that means we're adding the new resident letter to the October agenda, all right.
Gas-powered leaf blowers are banned in Montgomery County after July 1, 2025.
Okay, so the thing is,
Sale.
you're putting this on the agenda to be passed but I think it would be better if it was introduced and then published so the public can comment on it. Right,
all
Mr. Town Attorney?
Yes, that's right, Mr. Mayor.
While the council has the power to pass it, I think given the fact that there's a number of residents that have been following this kind of thing for years, that we should introduce it and then publicize it so people can make comments about it.
Yeah,
Because
that would be consistent with your policy for adoption of
yeah,
ordinances and resolutions and policies.
yeah.
This one's more than ceremonial.
Yeah, it's more than ceremonial, and I do think that there are going to be some citizens who think that this isn't strong enough.
Yeah, right, so we'll introduce it at the October meeting, and there are some citizens that think that we need to continuously remind residents that there are town rules on construction projects that they need to pay attention to.
In solving that.
All right, the next item is the gift policy fund, and I think that's EJ, just why did we bring it up? Is not sure, can't remember.
Yes, so this was at the last work session, the council began discussing the possible establishment of a gift fund, which kind of went into our entire gift policy. So this is the current gift policy. So the council could start a discussion on what they would like to see. I know at the last work session, Councilmember Kamar mentioned that he had started work with Matt Trollinger on this. I could not find that document, unfortunately.
Want me to borrow anything? Or
If you can try to,
Okay.
if you could find it, that'd be great. So this is what I was able to find.
Right, yeah, I mean, the gift fund idea is not quite this. It is that a gift fund is established for particular projects that town residents are interested in. The council would have to agree. We all said that the project was appropriate for the town. And then a gift fund could be a location for those funds to be collected. That was the concept behind it.
You
And-
remember, as we talked about, this is two parts. There's the gift policy, which is very limited now. This was developed by Councilor Appeal many years ago. And remember, things like certain donations to the town pool are not part of that. So when they've been offered, they were just accepted by the manager. But so, for example, I think somebody wanted to donate some kind of play thing, game. And the problem, if the town accepts it, is that it becomes a fixture. So that then if it gets stolen or damaged, then there's the expectation that we will replace it. So the issue with the gift policy is, do you want to add anything to that or not? Now, the fund is also the idea that there would be a fund where people could donate and they would possibly get a tax deduction. And that's where I had spoken with the Community Foundation, and they can make a presentation on how that can be done, like they have in Tacoma Park, for example. So that's really what the discussion is about. It's a two-part.
Right, and the gift fund idea, that is people collectively saving, that was given to Kabir for the Budget and Revenue Committee to tidy up and give a detailed proposal back to us, right?
Yes.
The other part of this is when it is kind of memorial gifts or gifts to the town, which are not money, but are property. And we've had several of those
Well, we had that one bequest, which I think is still.
There is
still
a
hasn't been
memorial
spent.
bequest too, that we've got,
it's-
we've got no
it's-
policy on the use of that memorial
Yeah.
bequest, which again, we should think about.
Well, there should be a policy like who decide. For example, it was a former council member who passed away and she left it in the will. That it's not as, and there was no specific designation about it. So we should have a policy as to where that money would go and who would decide what to do with it. So that's, and do you have anything to offer, Mr. Town Attorney, on how that could be added to
Yeah,
our code?
I'm typing an email to EJ right now. I found a draft I worked on in 2023.
Oh, good.
I had added a sentence that the town council may decide in its discretion whether to undertake maintenance and or replacement responsibility for any item. The town reserves the right in its discretion to dispose of any donated items for which the town has decided not to undertake maintenance and or replacement. To address that issue that you noted, Mr. Mayor, and as I recall, there was a question about donation of a foosball table, I think it was, or a pool table.
Yeah, pool table.
And
But-
we thought once its useful life has been used up, we should be able to dispose of it, and not taking on an obligation to replace it in kind.
So shouldn't we have some kind of document that if someone donates it, that they sign that they're donating it and
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
and then, but
there is
but the other thing was, don't we want to put in our code somewhere what the procedure would be if we get it? If we get an unsolicited bequest, undesignated request, how the money, who decides how to spend the money? Because I mean, like right now, I think it probably would just be up to the mayor to decide. But maybe we should have a procedure that it's put in a fund. I don't know. I think there just should be some policy about that.
Yeah, definitely. And I see EJ's added here some good language that says, in that instance, the donation is deemed unrestricted and it can be used by the town for whatever purposes the town finds appropriate in its discretion. But if you want some,
But I mean, that, but
Or
see,
detail.
that's kind of vague because then who decides? The town doesn't decide.
that's what I was gonna say.
Council or the mayor or the.
Right, mayor, manager, or do you want it to go before the council?
I think it should go before the council. It's partly for ethics reasons. In other words,
Yeah,
the mayor making a decision like that on his own, not you, Jeffrey.
No, no,
it's
no,
the
no,
mayor
no.
in the absence.
right, absolutely. It could be abuse.
It could
But that's why you all should decide how you want to put into the.
Okay. Yeah, we can add that.
For what it's worth, this original policy, the form in this original policy is a great starting point, the green form that already exists. Maybe that's what you were referring to, Ron. And I guess we could use that as a starting point. Because there's a form, if you want to donate, fill out this form. We could modify it to incorporate a wide range of use cases or make it more generic. Right now, it's specifically trees, benches, things like that.
Right.
To make it broader.
Well, I mean, you also might want to decide whether you want to have a plan giving policy so that you remind people they can leave, they can put Somerset in their will.
Yeah,
Right, I mean, there
that's a
is,
separate thing.
there are different elements to this. That's.
Everything, put everything.
Everything is going to the town.
So there's,
In your-
there,
Is that what you mean?
there's.
I mean, hopefully somebody's going to donate their house so that we can turn it into a pickleball court.
Yeah, right. Actually, we did make the block, because you need that.
I think we're not
Um,
making a good case
I mean,
for
there
it
might
to
be somebody that-
donated to the-
I mean, there might be somebody I mean, what's his name donated his house? The former owner of the football team. Remember he
Oh,
couldn't
Dan
sell it?
Snyder.
Remember he
Yeah,
couldn't sell it, so he
to
donated,
Cancer.
he donated it, and somebody did that in Alexandria too. So maybe somebody here that doesn't have any heirs is gonna donate their house to the town. We need to let them know they can do
It's
it
a tax.
when they're doing their estate planning.
All right, so let's try to the elements of this. All right, one element is when we get a memorial gift how do we make decisions to spend it? And at the moment, the assumption is the mayor can simply decide. And the consensus seems to be that we should write a policy that reflects council involvement in that. So it could be the mayor proposes, council disposes. It's in other words, that kind of form, but we need a policy on that. Secondly,
Doing the code.
well, it could be code or it could be just policy.
Well, ask Ron, ask Ron.
Does that need to be code thing?
So this is memorial gift, how we dispose of the funds.
Yeah, and Kabir, I couldn't hear your question. Does it,
So the, Robin described, what are the procedures for utilizing funds that we receive as part of a memorial gift or even as
yeah,
part of-
this can be included in the policy. We can update the existing policy to include that procedure.
All right.
Okay, our question was, does it also need to be something that's reflected in our code?
No, I don't think so. So what you might put in the code is, in the summer of 2023, I see we were also discussing procedures for outgoing gifts. If a charitable organization requests a contribution from the town, and I had proposed language for that. That's something that sometimes you'll find in the code if you want to prescribe parameters, requirements on when that could even be considered to have the force of law rather than a policy. For example, in Martin's Additions, they have a code provision that says we're not going to entertain requests for donations unless you check these initial boxes. You're a 501c3, your request would supplement and not supplant your operating needs. This is for an extraordinary need, et cetera.
Well, that seems to me to be a little bit redundant because doesn't it say in the Maryland Constitution or somewhere that any funds that we spend are supposed to be used to benefit our residents?
That's absolutely right. So,
Right.
yeah,
But it's to make it clear because, years ago, the town of Somerset gave a contribution to some nonprofit in DC. And that was clearly, they didn't use a town attorney in meetings in those days. But that's clearly a violation of state law or constitution. So I do think in order to protect these funds that we are the trustee of, that we should have similar language like Martin's Additions for the future.
All right. I mean, this gets more and more complicated. So first of all, all
yeah,
right.
sorry.
Well, it is. It's very complicated.
It is, we've got agreement that we need a procedure to cover bequests of money that we receive
And we'll update the policy.
and update the policy to reflect that. One. Two, we're now talking about when we give money to other organizations and that we are highly limited in doing that because we are constrained really that our money should benefit Somerset residents. The question is, how do we go beyond that? And we haven't really had a discussion around that. So let me put that to one side for the moment. Next thing is, are we handling gifts of property? Do we have enough language to cover gifts of property, or do we need to improve that gifts of property issue?
Well, okay, but in property, you mean the home? Do you mean?
Well, it could be as much as a home, but a foosball table,
I see.
from
Okay,
up to,
yeah,
and a
I-
piano,
Batting
which we've been
cage,
given, and
piano,
a batting
batting
cage, which we've been
cage.
given.
But that, in what we need there specifically, what I understood from the earlier conversation was to update the intake form. And which is effectively the agreement we
Right.
signed with the donor.
Yeah,
What that spells out some of the issues that Jeffrey laid out, that we are not on the hook for maintenance and
Yeah.
all of those pieces.
Okay.
So that's the action item there, is that it needs to be updated.
all right.
So that it spells out, we are not on the hook for maintenance, this is a one-time gift. We accept it only if the
All right,
maybe
so,
the piece is in good condition and can be used, and it's not scrap.
And have we found the form where initial work has been done on that yet?
Yes,
Um,
that's what, Ron sent it to me,
Yeah.
Okay, so Ron, you've now got an EJ.
so I can share it with you.
Okay, and so maybe at the next work session, we finalize that one. All right.
That's item number 2, but there was a third item, which was a giving fund.
Yes, right, that's, I think that's the fourth one, but whatever,
Oh,
yes.
yeah, third
So
item,
this is,
barring the
this is when
fourth
residents
bucket.
want to, build, I don't know, something at the pool, whatever, it
Well,
might be,
it could be for any purpose.
right,
There can we accept funds and could we then give people sort of tax write-off? Are we in a position to do that? And then what are the procedures?
right, we can do that, and that's what Jeffrey's talking about, that he's been in touch with the foundation. And that's what basically your committee is trying to come up with. In principle, we can do it, so let's,
Yes.
what does the committee recommend, how we do it?
Well, the committee had first asked whether we can legally do it or not, and I think that's where it stayed. I think Ron then came back and said, yes, we can actually provide a tax write-off, if I'm not mistaken, Ron. But that's, I think, as far as that effort went.
All right.
Yeah, but we can take it further
Right,
if it's sensible.
yeah, come up with a recommendation to
Okay.
give to council so
Fine.
that we can act on it,
Fine.
all right. Okay, so have I left anything hanging, or is that everything?
That's,
There.
to me, it sounds like. Anything-
All right. Okay. That was easy. Let's move on to the pool cover, which should be a lot easier, actually. EJ, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, thank you. So this was brought to my attention by Rob Smith, who is the Vice President of Construction at American Pools. He was the one who oversaw the pool renovation project on their end. Councilman Bruce Kumar and Heller are very familiar with him. He reached out to me recently about a new pool cover, and so on the second page of the section of the packet, I included his justification. And so basically, what he is saying is that while they didn't change the size of the pool during the renovation, they did change the shape a little bit. He says we made the shallow end turn more of a true turn, and the deep end walls a softer turn with the coping and tile line. His fear is that the existing cover will be off enough on these two areas that it will shift the straight lines and cause areas of the pool to become exposed. The new slide may cause an issue with the cut as well. And then if it doesn't end up fitting, they'll have to drill new holes, which will cause double drilling on the deck. After I got this email, I walked out with him so he could point out exactly what all this meant to me. So basically, and why part of the reason it really needs to be discussed by the council is technically doesn't know if it'll technically the old one could still fit, and so if that was the case, then we shouldn't need to buy a new one. But at the same time, since this takes a couple weeks to develop, the pool would be left exposed quite a little bit after pool closing. And then even if it does fit, they might have to drill new holes, which would just mean we would have unused holes on the deck. And then if it didn't fit as well, there would be parts of the pool exposed with the cover. So American Pools is arguing for a new pool cover that included their proposal and justification.
Can we talk about the holes on the deck? Are there holes drilled now to fit a new cover? Or are there no holes?
There are no holes yet.
So we have to get holes
Yes,
for any cover that we do.
yes.
So if this were my house, I would take out the cover. I would stretch it out to see, does it fit or it doesn't fit? And if it doesn't, I'd order a new cover. Why aren't we doing it?
That's what I asked American Bulls. And their big argument is that due to they won't be able to test out the pool cover until pool closing due to the
That's
work
Sunday.
conditions.
That's Sunday, okay, we're talking not a week.
Yeah.
And that pool is going to close, so why can't they take it out on Monday, stretch it out? Figure out yay or nay, and if it doesn't fit, then we have to buy a new cover. But maybe it will fit. They gotta drill holes no matter how they slice it, no? This,
Sounds very
what am I
reasonable.
missing here about the holes? I feel like I'm missing something that will have wrong holes.
Well, I think that to have this discussion, you need to have somebody from the company to explain.
Well, I mean, can we vote on pushing this, this goes on our October agenda, the pool safety cover. And we need to hear from the pool and the message to them is Debbie's message to American pools, which is that try the old cover first to make sure that we need a new cover.
Yeah, Monday they need to pull it out. And they need to see if it fits. If it doesn't fit, then we have something to vote on. But
So
it's,
to clarify, you're saying, let's put it on the agenda,
right,
but we will get the date information,
Right.
and we can decide at the council meeting.
they always pull it off. the agenda.
But
We
also,
can always put it on.
also, for this price, probably we should be getting other, you know,
Bids.
bids, because you can't just always believe what the one contractor says.
What is that question?
50,000.
So then, yes, we have.
But I guess what I worry about in this is if you have to go get new bids, it's gonna take some time. And then will we be in time to get a pool cover? How hard is it to get a pool cover? Is this,
But
is
they
this
need to find out.
canvas?
It's a good question as to.
There-
when
I think there is an
the
exigency.
power to be on.
There's an exigency exception in our policy on the 15,000 minimum, I believe.
If it's an emergency.
Yeah.
And there's a couple exemptions.
But still, I know, but why are they telling us this now instead of,
Like,
that's the issue.
But, that's a, Debbie, coming back to your earlier point, by when does the cover need to go on?
Technically, it's not,
Like, from a weather perspective, not from a
Oh.
pool is closed, and
Oh,
that's the
yeah,
cover, like,
yeah, so it,
we probably have some time.
I don't think
yeah,
that's
it
the
doesn't
right.
have to
Yeah,
go
it's
immediately,
still-
we have time. American Pools argument, this is all American Pools.
Well, they wanna
argument,
wrap up and.
Is
Yeah.
that, they'll have to treat the pool while it's open. So, even if nobody's using it, if the pool's uncovered, they'll have to treat it with certain chemicals.
Well, just that, it doesn't need to happen Monday,
But yeah.
it needs to happen before the next council meeting.
Well, but the pool closes on Sunday.
So they have, from then until the next council meeting, test the old cover.
Except what I'd love to know, why I'm saying, do it immediately. Okay, if Monday's not appropriate, then this Tuesday. Is I'd like for them to say to you, this definitely does not work, EJ. And if it doesn't work, then you can go get another bid or two. And make this happen fast. Because I guess they wanna cover it, leaves are gonna come down, all sorts of garbage, whatever.
Yeah, or make a case for the exemption.
Right, exactly, and make a case for the exemption. If
But
it's
also, there can be, if this becomes urgent, I'm sure you can get other bids and we can have a special meeting to vote on it.
That's true.
So I just think you have to do your due diligence here. The staff has get all this information.
Right.
But you can't just rely on this one for an expense like that. You can't just rely on the recommendation of, the contractor.
That's true.
It has a conflict of
For what it's
interest.
worth, Rob is very competent.
Yeah, Rob has been, I think, fair with us, and I think he did a great job. And I do have confidence in Rob. But.
Except these are public funds that were.
No, we're
I
going to
know.
follow the process, we
Yeah,
follow the
we'll
Yeah,
process.
it's a
follow the
process.
process, but I think Rob is okay, all right?
I'm sure, but you still
And
have to do your,
Right.
this is why we're
We put it on the
very
agenda,
sorry.
we do the
Okay.
homework.
Yeah,
And then
I
we
agree.
sort it out.
Okay,
So, all right, so we'll consider it for the October 7th meeting. We need the earliest indication whether it is necessary. If it is necessary, is there any chance of getting bids in beyond that one before October 7th? EJ?
They can try. I think they need to try.
Yeah, you can't say it.
you have to identify who does
Yeah.
this and
I
Who
think we
does
take
it
step by
locally?
step. Let's see if the existing
just
one
needs to
is indeed a
try.
problem, then.
All
I
right,
mean,
It
it's
might be a
good that
problem
he
if you
brought
get a
it.
Local person in and you gotta go with Rob.
Yeah.
all right, so are we all clear what's happening then? It is that once the pool closes, they should try to fit the current cover to it. If it doesn't fit, then we will try to get additional bids before the October 7th meeting, and we will vote on the October 7th meeting which bid we're accepting. That's
Okay.
what it boils down to.
Sounds good to me.
Or have a special meeting if necessary.
And if we need a special meeting.
Yeah.
All right, so EJ, it's you on the updated procurement policy.
Yes, so this was put together by Ron after this was actually put together about a month or two ago. It just sort of made it onto the agenda now in kind of response to different things that have come up. I can comment on it. Ron, would you want to go ahead and kind of go over the main changes of this procurement policy?
Sure, yeah, I can do that. So I think the main thrust of it was following my recommendation that there be a time limit on contracts. A best practice, based on my experience, is to limit contracts to 5 years. A lot of contract vendors like to have open-end contracts that renew annually, but if you have a 5-year limit or some other limit, then you're guaranteeing that you're going to go out to bid again periodically. So you'll see that that's the new number 6 on page 2. That for me was the biggest change. And then there's some clarifying language, and paragraph 7 there says all of our procurement is subject to annual appropriation and termination for convenience by the town. That's a standard provision for municipal contracts as well. Obviously, we can't fund a contract if it's not budgeted for. And then on page 3, additional term is added for our evaluation criteria. Again, another standard practice, standard language. We're not obligated to accept the lowest bid. The standard phraseology is the lowest responsive and responsible vendor. So it's not always the vendor that's the lowest. The lowest bid doesn't have to be accepted because there are other considerations that we include. And then we've added a paragraph on what can happen if we don't receive a bid that directly meets our requirements or meets them only in part, allows us to engage in contract negotiations. And then there's some clarifying language in the exceptions to, I guess, just improve the way it's been phrased in the past. And instead of saying piggybacking, we're saying cooperative bidding, non-substantive there with respect to those edits on the bottom of page 3, top of page 4. So that is it in a nutshell. I think last time we amended this was 2022. And this is the type of policy that you could adopt on the spot if you want, or if you wanted to hold it over for public comment, you could do that too. I consider this one more administrative than policy making, but up to the council.
I think this makes good common sense. It's just strictly administrative. And mention objections. I recommend if people want to object, or let us know in October, we can always reconsider. But move it along, adopt it.
If you,
Just what does responsible mean in the context of it should be awarded to the lowest responsive and responsible vendor?
Responsible typically means you're satisfied by the presentation of their references, that and their proposal in general about their work experience, that they do have the.
There are no black marks against them is what it boils down to.
Exactly, yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, I got no other questions. Are we all right? Okay, we are quite comfortable with this as an administrative.
Can that,
Okay.
but can't that be put on the consent agenda
It certainly could, Mr. Mayor. I
per
would
Councilmember
suggest,
Circa's request?
yes, it could, yes, definitely. Absolutely. That's
All right,
a better way of doing it than what I suggest.
But I do think, make sure that it's in the packet, because there are citizens that read the documents connected to every agenda item,
Mhm.
which I'm very happy about.
All right, so we'll move it to the consent agenda then. The next item is committee reorganization. That's a big item, and Betty, you've been leading the charge on this one, so.
Well, actually, we've been doing this together, EJ and I.
Mhm.
EJ, do you want me to start? Do you want to start? You want to start? Okay. Okay, what brought us to this is that we have 14 committees, okay? We have some non-committees that, they're called current non-committee bodies, you know, that do not require a council liaison. The 14 committees, however, do, except for maybe audit doesn't get one. Audit and, I guess, what's it called?
The Board of
Board of-
Elections.
Board of Elections,
That's not
sorry.
really a committee.
Okay. So.
Those are both in the charter.
Okay, so 14 is a lot of committees. And we have a problem getting committee members. You know, and so it isn't like we have people knocking on the door going, hey, I want to do this. And so we talked about putting some committees together. And so what we came up with were 7 proposed committees. And you can see the first one that we bundled is the Finance, Revenue, and Budget. Thinking that those were 3 committees that could really be under one umbrella. The next one was the Environment as number 3. Communication stays as it is. Environment, which is the merger of Environment and Parks and Natural Resources. We thought that was a good one to put together. And by the way, this is all up for discussion. Okay, so I'm just throwing it out at you guys and then you tell us what you think. Nothing here is set in stone. The next one would be community events. It's a merger of equity and inclusion and newcomers. And I want to add, we don't really have an equity and inclusion committee right now because we don't have a chair. You
But
know,
we have a number of committees we don't have.
yeah, we have a number of committees, we don't have chairs, it's not a problem. Keeping pool by itself, even though I have to say, I really thought that overhaul, we should have a recreation committee. Pool and tennis,
Pickleball.
pickleball,
Battle for another time.
battle for another time.
Batting cage.
Batting cage.
We don't have that committee. Don't
No,
care
no,
about
but
We
all
still
that-
have the batting cage committee, don't we?
No.
We can still dream.
Isn't
We can
it?
dream.
Is it okay?
Anyway, so yes, I would love to see pool and tennis bundled together, but maybe that's for another time. And then public safety, merge public safety and traffic. Traffic committee is also on the defunct end of life here, but still, it's very important. And public safety has really picked that up already in terms of talking about that and, you know, stuff. So this is our suggestion. And now I would like you guys, EJ, you want to add anything to it?
Well, you also, the history committee can go into.
Yeah, you want to talk about the non-committee?
The non-committees, okay, non-committees, okay, Board of Supervisors, we know that one has to stay on its own. Youth Council, that is really, you know, the brainchild of EJ. And so he is running it, and I think that's very appropriate, I don't think it needs one of us, I love that it's sitting here in the town hall, in our seat of government, because we're trying, you know, we're nurturing them to do this sort of work. Swim team, we've never really.
But we're reorganizing that.
Okay, swim team? What are we organizing?
We're
Youth council?
working on a new governance structure for
Okay.
that.
Because
Because that doesn't work. It doesn't work, function as a committee.
Okay. Swim team, I don't know, I don't understand that, because a swim team committee,
There's so that's just more because, as the mayor said, we're reorganizing the entire governance, so it won't be a committee anymore.
okay,
So it sounds like these 5 will not be committees.
Yes.
Right.
Committees.
right,
But yeah,
For different reasons.
right, and they just,
what's the concern over the History and Archives Committee?
we don't have it, you know.
Well, it lacks a chair at the moment. Is the-
Yeah, it's also. another-
So we kind of looked at that as, these are as needed basis. So a history project comes our way, we pull somebody in to work on it, and then we're done, we don't need a formal committee.
Well, also the history committee years ago, what they would do is they would put on an event. So
They did recently too. It's also about archives, and a lot of history depends upon the archives you keep, and so they're intimately tied together. And what the History and Archives Committee has been concerned about is the town archives and maintaining them for future history reasons. So they are bound together. And so. I think,
But it's more of a it's more of a staff function.
I
That's
thought
what I was
Paige
wondering.
was the,
She's
well,
not.
I'm going to talk to Paige again, see if she wants to be chair again. She seemed to be back to life again.
But she can be, but she could be on the community events committee,
But
and we won't be able to find people to be on that committee.
what I'm trying to say is archiving is important to history and the history and archive.
And
committee.
I agree with that, but
Well,
what
it
I'd love to
is.
see it to be, I'd like to see it to be a function of the town hall, so it always has continuity. And then, when there are special projects, then our town manager, our assistant town manager reaches out and gets somebody, you know, of like-mindedness who wants to work on this, like Paige.
Yeah.
Maybe Paige doesn't want to be the chair, but maybe Paige wants to come back to run a project. this,
Yeah,
you
the
know.
problem with having these committees is then you have the Open Meetings Act, they have to be announced, you have to have members, you have to take votes and all that. And it's better if they're just volunteers that help the town staff on certain things. And the archive function is handled by the staff. So it's
Well,
not as if any citizen needs to have input into some
There-
policies.
There are, first, the archives were not handled well by prior town staff. I'm sure EJ is making a good job, but it's beyond that. There are town records that are not in the town hall.
Right.
I know,
in
but
Donna
that-
Harmon's house at the moment, as far as I can understand, and I'm going to have a look at them and see if we can get them.
Well,
to the
th-
town.
well,
That's a
those should, those,
Um,
yeah.
so-
But a committee
That
doesn't,
actually
but that
speaks
isn't
to
really
why it
committee
should
work.
be
That isn't
town
committee
function.
work. That's staff work.
For that you
The
just-
only reason we added archives was because we weren't in compliance with Maryland law. And then we hired Donna, the
Right,
other
yes, I know
Donna,
that.
and now we're in compliance. So it's not as if there's anything, if volunteers want to help the town staff with the history project or archives, they can do it, but we don't have to be bound by this committee structure where they have to go to meetings, be announced, take Open Meetings Act. It's just not,
Have a chair.
it's just kind of dysfunctional. And it's gonna be, it's hard enough to find people for 7 committees, much less 14.
Yeah, the communications committee is a great example. We need at least one more person, but we can't get it. You know, it's a great committee. As I said, I think it's one of the best committees I've ever worked on. It is just, Leslie runs it and she's great and it's a great committee, but we're down a person and we've looked. We've knocked on doors and,
Right, that's why, it's
That's
better
why we
to have
less-
7 functioning committees and
and
then if there's Robin, if there's a need, let's see if there's a need sometime to have citizen input on the archives policy, then a special committee can be created like we did for the sidewalk.
Right.
But for now, it doesn't really, the history committee doesn't really have a mission that they need to achieve.
I would love to see us try this, you know, and try it and see if it works. If it doesn't work, then we expand. But I would just love to try it, but,
Well, I'll bring it back to the committee and get their read on it.
okay, what do the rest of you think?
I
It's really-
think it's.
I mean,
great.
the thing is, you move it forward, the idea, and then people can comment, and then you can vote. If enough, so if so many people object to the elimination of the History and Archives Committee, so then you put it back in. But I don't think that's gonna happen.
I mean, if the history and archives aside, even if that goes back in committee,
Right.
this is a good.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay, so let's not lose.
I mean, one of the reasons why
That's a good
Paige
thing. We're moving
resigned
forward.
from the chair is because she didn't, we have to, all these committees are supposed to,
Paige resigned as the chair because her husband died.
but she also.
But let's not belabor this. We
Yeah.
can get it, we can
Yeah.
bring it back. We need
Right.
to.
Yeah.
But overall, I think everyone is aligned. Just quickly on finance, revenue, and budget, I was given some homework on that after the last time we discussed, and I discussed with the revenue chair, and I discussed with Peter Hyman, who's now the chair of the budget committee, and everyone is in
You like it?
agreement, and we started to draft the charter.
Great, thank you.
And that, I mean, I started to draft it and I dropped the ball, that's why he's my manager. But I can circulate that before the next council meeting.
I mean-
Or either.
I mean, the fact of the matter is that any citizen that wants to get involved with some area of the town government, we find a way for them to do that.
I
You
have a
know.
small suggestion. Just to keeping in mind people and personality. Could we call it environment and parks?
I'm not married to any of these.
Okay.
You
so that would
guys
be
like
my
environment
Small
in
suggestion.
parks, or what
It
do
would
we call it?
feel Environment. So
Parks and
it feels
natural
like
resources.
Environment acquired the other committee and just may feel.
Well, there's another committee
Or-
that has lost the chair, the Parks Committee.
We're gonna have
Because
a
he
Parks
moved
and
to
Rec.
Spain.
committee.
He has moved to Spain for a year.
Yeah, that's really.
We always do
But
it.
that's a small minor, not a big deal.
I don't really care what we call it.
But,
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
and then a last suggestion is, does this accompany sort of other reform, like how long can someone be a chair of a committee?
Well, that's another conversation we need to have,
Okay,
because some of our committees have chairs forever,
well, they're an extension of that person.
right? And it's not healthy, you
Three
know?
committees in particular are an extension of that person, which is not a bad thing for our town, frankly, that they're committed people, but I wonder the broader reform.
Well, it does hold other people back.
It may. you're
And,
right.
it's just, being here 38 years, okay, and I've been part of some of these
I don't want to get
unhealthy.
involved with that person's committee. So-
Right, it's just,
Exactly.
Well, that committee, there used to be term limits on the pool.
Can I
committee.
bring us back into order here and say, what's the next step here? Is someone gonna write an article from Town Journal presenting this reorganization?
Well, what is the next?
Well, do you want to introduce it as the first idea?
Yeah, we need to
Introduce it.
introduce it.
so we introduce it.
Introduce it as what exactly?
Just a committee reorganization, committee revitalization,
Oh, that's good.
committee.
Well, Mr. Town Attorney, aren't the committees all in the code?
Yes.
Yeah,
The standing committees are all in the code, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor.
yeah. So it would be, you would ask
Board of-
you would ask the town attorney to draft an amendment to the code to reflect whatever you all want.
But do we
Do
want
that
to,
before.
So you might want to do that. You might want to ask them to draft something and then discuss it again at the October work session, to decide whether you're going to introduce it.
Robin, you're not happy with
Whatever
that?
you want.
yeah, I think my first inclination is to share it with the town and get their reaction, because so many people are on committees in the town and will have feelings about it for that reason. So before we change everything and come up.
So
with
then what you
change
could do
proposals-
is EJ and Debbie could write, EJ could author an article that's co-signed by Debbie with such proposal that incorporates all the good ideas people had. And then at the work session in October, you could decide to charge the town attorney with drafting something
Okay,
to be
That's better.
introduced. Right.
all right.
So that would seem to incorporate everybody's excellent input.
All right, okay, so we know what the next step there is, and we can move on to updates from the town manager, so E EJ.
One last question, the ethics commission in the new,
Yes, I was about to expound on that.
could you expand on that?
Yeah, that's what I'll start with. So this was something that kind of emerged after me, a couple of us attended the Maryland Municipal League Summer Conference. Is a lot of towns, cities, actually most of them have an ethics commission. The reason Somerset does is we were especially exempted back when the state law was first created. But after,
Why would we?
it was our size,
I see.
yeah,
And budget.
and budget.
This was, when was that, like 20 years ago? Because isn't this
Yeah,
when Chevy Chase,
1990.
isn't this when Chevy Chase Village had, when people were running for the council, had to disclose their net worth and everything?
So the ethics law goes back many decades, but yeah, you're right, Mr. Mayor, maybe
Yeah.
12
12
years
years
ago
ago, yeah.
approximately, that law was amended to require financial disclosure, but
Right,
only-
right, right.
Okay, yes,
And-
okay. So
and
we
so-
were-
But they have a bigger budget because they have a police department.
So there is a state law or county law, state law
State.
that prescribes exactly what these commissions.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
and so,
That's interesting.
yeah. it's,
when they're required.
When they're applied,
Yeah.
okay,
And so,
I see, that's helpful, Rob.
at the next work session, that I wanted to bring this, just the general idea before the council, but. To create the draft a more in-depth proposal of basically opting in to the law.
That would be helpful
Mhm.
before we
Yeah.
adopt it.
And,
Awesome.
but that's, but the idea that kind of, emerged from speaking with other towns and, representatives in the state level.
Sounds great.
And then a campaign finance too.
Mhm.
You know, the town of Chesapeake Beach now, did you know this, Mr. Town Attorney? In Chesapeake Beach, they put in a new law that limits the amount of campaign contributions and also limits it to town citizens.
I did not know that, Mr. Mayor.
Chesapeake Beach.
I almost bought a house there. I have a quick question, that kind of relates to, if we want to discuss at a future meeting term limits, does that have to be, is that a code thing also?
Yes.
Okay.
Probably charter.
Well,
Well, I
you
think we
talking
have to
about
include that in the charter because I think
Are you-
that's,
But is that for committees? Remember, Council Member Circo brought this up about 2 years ago. And, but does that also, would it have to be in the charter if it was for a committee?
no, not for committees. No, that could be in the code.
So you're,
You're referring to committees, not for us.
You're-
and
Well,
not for
I,
the-
I actually would love for us to talk in general,
I
but
would
I
love
didn't-
to do that.
you know, but I realize that's another meeting.
That's another few.
But I
meetings.
did wonder in terms of if we did it for committees, you know, what we had to do legally, that's all.
Yeah, that could be the code.
Okay.
So let me see, yeah, 13 is
So
committee.
are you saying you want to bring up the idea of term limits for committee chairs? For discussion?
She's contemplating it. and
Well, I do. I
gathering
think,
data.
I
Okay.
think it's
well, we
a
can put it
healthy
on the
thing.
agenda for next month,
Fine,
next
we can
month.
do it.
Yeah, I think we should do that.
There should be some sort of.
We need
If we don't get anyone else to volunteer, maybe.
We need to have a
Yeah.
discussion. We don't have a direct idea. I just think we need to discuss it as a team and decide what.
Well, you know, you could have a term limit for a committee, membership or chair. And then you could have a waiver. You could have
Oh,
a waiver.
so I apologize, I'm corrected. So the charter currently provides at section 13(3), there are no limits on the number of terms that may be served on a town committee.
Oh,
So that
It's
would
in
be
the
a charter.
Charter.
I didn't realize that the committees were even in the charter.
I forgot as well.
Did they have committees in 1906? I guess so.
Does that refer to
I think
chairs
that's-
separately, or because presumably there could be a limit on a chair of a committee without being a limit on a committee member?
Okay, so yeah, chairs are addressed in 13(4).
Oh,
There
yeah.
are no limits on the number of times that an individual may be nominated and appointed as chairperson of a town committee.
Okay,
Okay,
I mean.
but you can change any of
But
that.
yeah, I mean, we could also say that they should,
Oh, I apologize. That's chapter 13 of the code, not of the charter.
Code,
oh,
okay.
code, okay.
Those
so
those
then-
are just, those are code amendments, not charter.
Oh, not
amendments.
then we
charter,
can change
okay.
that, okay, all right,
Let's
all right.
move on.
Yeah.
Okay, then it can be discussed, all right. So EJ, back to you, updates from the town manager.
So this is because I did not accidentally or mistakenly did not include a manager's report in the September council meeting, so I thought I'd kind of give a verbal one here, and then if the council has any questions, just kind of on general updates. So first, this kind of goes to the public safety priority of sidewalks that's been brought up the last couple of months. And so earlier this month, we replaced 3 major hazards of sidewalk, one on Big Surrey, one on Cumberland, and one on Dorset. And then we identified some other hazards we're gonna look at fixing. So that's the first item, and then the second item is street repairs, so another public safety priority. So this is kind of 2 parts, is one, we are working on the development of that master plan, so that has been slowed down recently because the pedestrian safety working group is wanting to discuss it before it moves further along, which they will be doing Tuesday. But it's been discussed with the public safety committee and other parties. But in the meantime, we have noticed that there are some immediate issues we would like to take care of, and so last week I walked the town with a couple of people. We identified pointing out potholes, some major cracking, sidewalks and rumble strips that need restoration. So I walked with them so they could put together a scope of work, and they're going through that process right now. So once they create that scope of work, I can then issue an RFP to have that work hopefully done soon. Third thing is the pool bridge. This was a capital project outlined in the budget. Currently having it inspected so that I can create a scope of work about what exactly we need to have done to the bridge. And so once that inspection is done, I can create an RFP for that work. Next, another capital project, the 10 Acres Court renovation is complete. I think it looks quite nice. And then we also, so it was completely resurfaced, repainted, cleaned up. We also ordered some new netting. I think it looks really good.
Are people playing tennis on it now?
They are.
Yesterday, I noticed all 3 courts being used. That's the first time I've
Was
noticed
anybody
that.
playing pickleball?
No pickleball, but it's the first time I saw all 3 courts being used in probably months and months, okay, so,
Okay, they're
great.
rushing to it. All right,
That's funny.
so operations then, EJ.
Yes, and so on the rollout of the opt-out compost collection program, we have given compost crew an entire list of all the houses that are being added to the program. We of course did the households that opted out.
How many opted out?
15 households currently have opted out. And then so
We haven't,
no, so
big conversation.
yes, they're about to start delivering the buckets. I've been in contact with them. They had some sort, I don't know, they didn't give me all the details. They had some sort of manufacturing problem. They manufacture their own buckets. They ran into some issues, so they're behind schedule, which has pushed us behind schedule. So they are telling me that they should be able to start delivering this month, but that's why it hasn't happened quite yet.
All right,
Second thing is traffic calming, been working.
I guess the order at one, they are often they have the order.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds.
Yeah.
It's still a small operation.
Yeah, and so traffic calming, there's been, since I've been in town, talk about, of course, worries about speeding and all sorts of other problems. So after speaking with public safety community, we're acquiring 2 devices, those devices that can actually track how fast people are going, and it collates all the data. So we're gonna, once we get those, the plan is to put them at different spots around town and actually collect data to see what kind of traffic calming measures should be put in place and where we need to place them. On the fun side of things, we recently had the Unique Members Party and Non-Engineering and New Year's Eve Social. Both those events I thought went really well, thanks to the Newcomers Committee, the volunteers of the Non-Engineering and New Year's Eve Social, and of course Linda made all those events really successful. So pretty happy about that. Next, polymorphic.
Linda made some amazing.
Cookies.
One that made some amazing
Which
cookies.
are not available today.
There are no samples?
That's for sure, there'd be some boxes here when I came in, I was really disappointed.
That's what I was hoping.
Empty boxes?
No, full boxes of cookies.
So a couple months ago, we signed a contract with Polymorphic for new software, the first of which we're kind of testing right now, but it is available to the public, which is a smart search function on the website. So if you go onto the website, there is a new search function pretty prominently displayed. Me and Justin right now are making sure everything,
How's it working?
it's working really great, because I'm very happy with the answers it provides.
Right.
And yes, the one thing we're still working through, the only kink really is how it shows up on mobile devices.
Oh shit,
So-
I was just gonna.
So it still works, but
Like 95% of my.
yeah, it still works, but it kind of clogs up the screen. It's more of a it's more of a
It's a
design,
UI thing.
yeah, UI thing.
Understood.
So on desktop, it looks really good, but we're still working with them to make it better on the UI. And then still working on it, but getting pretty close, is a moving our permitting application online. We're still messing around with a few different features to get it how we want, but that's coming along really promising. I'm actually hoping that potentially the next work session, to give the council a tech demo of it, basically. Same with tennis registration, that is done as soon as we connect it to our accounts.
Excuse me, does that mean that that all registration comes through here and not through, Carrie,
Yes.
money, everything and?
Yes. And we're working on a couple other systems right now, but the tennis registration and the permitting are the two biggest ones. Next, I've recently been getting quite a few comments on the town entrances. So
Only
I.
recent,
Are they positive or negative?
they're not positive.
They are not positive.
Okay. Well, we already discussed that there shouldn't be.
Yes.
We want people to comment.
Yes, so I'm putting together, I met with Kelly and I'm putting together an action plan to tackle those and turn those comments into positives.
You should put up the search and show people.
Okay.
I added a simple question, which is what are our stormwater requirements?
Come on.
I can,
I think it's pretty good.
I can do that.
What are the town's stormwater requirements?
All right,
It's really bad.
so where are we in .gov?
Yes, I'll do that, Kevin, and I can do a quick tech demo. Is DACA, we're so close, we've got it approved, we started the process. But our IT, the person we use for IT has ran into a technical issue getting it set up. So we had to reach out to the .gov IT support, and so now we're at the mercy of federal government IT support, waiting on them to respond to us. So it's coming very soon. We're just waiting on this technical issue. And then committee updates, the communications committee hosted their second town talks with resident Andrew Weiss. It was standing room only. There was quite a great turnout.
That's great.
It was fabulous. It was fabulous.
Really good.
And then at the environment committee just hosted a meeting, and part of that meeting was a presentation with Backyard Bounty. And I knew a few residents attended that. And then I already mentioned it, but the newcomers hosted the newcomers party. And then the kind of finished update, so this is how our website is currently looking. You can see in the corner the feature, and so the idea is you can ask,
You can type in what are the stormwater requirements?
hit my, there we go.
I love that our AI is thinking.
And then it provided an answer, so I'm trying to make it readable. but,
That's great.
Wow, fabulous.
And then it
So
also,
you have to check if it's hallucinating and make sure
Yeah.
it's not coming up with
Exactly.
requirements from
Yeah.
another town.
but luckily it does show where it's getting its information, which has been really helpful.
It's not
And
using
so
Chat GPT, is it?
It's based off the technology.
It's based on multiple elements.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really happy. with
You
the
like,
results so
put in
far.
there, which is the
I knew
best,
everyone would want a question.
who is the most popular council member?
I could, I don't know.
Well, let's do it, let's do it.
It's only you.
It could be Shannon.
It's only you.
Listen.
Jamie Raskin.
I don't think it'll give an answer.
Yeah, the sources provide no information about the popularity,
Okay, all
but it
right.
does tell you where you might be able to look to find the most popular council.
Well, could you put in when are the next, when is the next council meeting?
Yes, and this is the one actually issue we are still running in, is making sure it's reading the calendar
It's
correctly.
probably not reading that.
Yes, but I will show you what it says.
It's not that I need to know.
Oh, no, actually.
Okay, get it right.
worked,
There we
actually.
go.
Okay.
All right.
October.
Pretty fast, right?
Yeah.
This text that you're reading, it doesn't exist in this form anywhere on the site. The AI is generating this. text.
Yeah,
As a
it's
summary.
incredible.
Yeah.
Just do one more.
What do I need to do? What do I need to
Ron, we
do?
might not need you anymore.
Yeah, I'm logging on right now to give us some.
What is on page, what is section?
No, we need it
13
more.
B of the code.
We
Oh,
need,
no.
I think we need him on a daily basis.
So.
All right,
Very nice.
all right, thank
Meeting
you.
adjourned. No.
Nope,
Another
nope.
So the last item was town fees, which I asked if you put on the agenda.
No, he's giving the duck up.
I did that.
You did that already.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
He
I
said
asked
the
it to put it on the agenda after the discussion
Oh.
over the water aerobics, and we were accused that we don't have a policy on when we charge fees for something versus included in taxes. And it's true, we don't, in fact, have a policy. So one thing to think about is what goes into a policy where we decide when we have fees as opposed to just allowing taxes. Some things are obvious, like if people rent the town hall, obviously they pay a fee for that. But we're, going beyond that, where do we go? And so that's what to think about. To stop it there because it's 7 o'clock already, but
Make it a
Okay.
topic for next.
Well, we go till 7:30.
I have,
oh, we don't.
but I have one quick
It's a
thing. I
2-hour
wanna bring up.
meeting.
Can I just bring up one quick thing? Since you're done with town fees, and yes, we should talk about that. Anyway, I just wanted to remind everybody that Wednesday night, Andrew Friedson is hosting a listening session on the attainable housing. And what they'll do is they will present the whole, their whole plan. And then if they do it like they did the others, there'll be questions where people can raise their hand, they go around with a microphone, and people say what they're thinking, or they ask questions. They're not really answering questions, except they did a few at the Wheaton session. So far, 500 people have registered to be there.
Wow.
I've been in contact today with Matt Higgins, Andrew's legislative assistant, trying to find out will they let people in at the door anyway. In the past sessions, he said that they did check people in. He goes, this is going to be too many people. And it will probably depend on the fire marshal, what the fire marshal says. So I think we should, those of us that can be there really should go. I think it's really an important meeting. And I want to say that I think we as a council need to have this discussion. And we need to decide, are we taking a stand? What kind of leadership are we going to provide? And all the other communities around, they've all got groups working on it and talking to people. And I've been out there pounding, yesterday I was pounding the pavement. Those pamphlets in your door, if you were on my side of the town, I did. The other side, Rohit Kahana did.
Yeah.
But we need to be discussing this. And how do we what do we want to mobilize our town people? I know that some people, here's my sense, there'll be some people that agree with it, like the idea of it, but I think the majority of our residents will not. And so, but we need to find out, and we need to decide how we're gonna do this and take a stand and be leaders in our town for this. So, because people are asking me, what does the council say? So I say, well, we haven't taken a position yet. Now, I know Jeffrey pointed out to me, it's not on the legislative agenda yet because it hasn't been introduced. But people, in me walking around yesterday, people didn't know about it. So,
Well, one of the things that I had talked about this summer is that, we started with the presentation by the planning, but I had raised the idea that we would have a meeting here to achieve the same kind of goal that Friedson, just for our
right,
citizens.
we should have our own
So,
listening session.
so we can do that.
Okay.
so-
Plan that.
So we can, that's what we had talked about.
I'm happy to take.
What's the
lead on
timing
planning
on
that.
all this?
Well,
No. Okay, what's gonna happen is, once they start having these meetings, they're gonna get chicken. And
You
they,
say
I mean,
evolve.
I- maybe they'll introduce something in November, but I don't know.
well, what
I mean, they don't
Andrew
even know, because I've talked
got
to
cornered
many
at
of the
the
council,
heard,
I've talked to many of the council members and,
Yeah.
Andrew
he-
got
and they
taken
don't-
to the cleaners at the Drummond.
At the Drummond Block Party
well,
last
because
night.
everybody knows that Andrew is all about his developer supporters.
Right.
And
Well,
he
it is-
doesn't, and the way so given that there's no restrictions on requirements for affordable housing in the planning board recommendations, that's what all Andrew's people want. So this is all just for show. Because he's
Well-
not gonna be our ally on this.
Well, we have to make him be our ally.
But he's only one vote.
I know he's
And
only.
he's not
one.
even gonna be the chair. He's not even gonna be the
Yeah,
president of
but
the
he
council.
needs to hear from us. He was not with us.
I
on
know,
the
but we
call.
also need to speak out to our other representative, our 4 at-large representatives.
So we have some work to do, but I think we need to start first. I think you're right. We
Totally.
need to have a listening session here in Somerset.
Yeah.
For our residents, let them tell us what they think and feel, let them ask us questions. We'll answer to
And
the
then
best
we
of
could
our
also
ability.
invite Andrew to be here that night, so he can, all these good questions you have, we can ask him.
Right. you should
They're the
have
ones
one-
making the decisions.
We should be able to have a town session with our representative.
Yeah,
I think
We should be able to.
we should invite him. We should invite him.
All right.
Mhm.
Debbie, in terms of your other request, if you want us, the council, to meet and talk about this, I'm definitely ready to do that whenever it makes sense.
Yeah, well, do we do this at the next work session?
We
Where
can
we-
do a special session, we can do it next week.
But-
we might want our own session for it because it's quite, I mean, the issue is quite complex, actually.
Right, and I think,
recommend it.
I think we need so do we talk about it first as a group and then have our listening session?
Yeah.
Is that what you think? Okay, then we need to make a special meeting for it.
And I want to remind you that as this council did submit a charter in the previous iteration,
Yeah, that was back for,
2 years ago.
yeah,
So we
Right.
have come up with a collective position. And we can try to come up with a collective position.
Now, just so you know, Arlington County, they're in the courts over this.
get this
And I suppose that's where we will go too. I don't know. Is Ron still on?
we
The
just,
fees.
Ron, what are you hearing from
Did
your,
we have the discussion on it?
from your
It was just a
other
beginning of the discussion.
towns?
we'll
So
go on from
you're
there.
fine with that for tonight?
On whether what vote is
Special
a,
work session.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wonder, is Jeffries thinks that this won't go anywhere. What do your other towns think?
No, I didn't say they won't go anywhere.
Well, you kind of said.
No, I didn't say that.
well, I'd rather say it in closed session.
Yeah, we don't need.
Okay,
we
all
don't-
right,
we
another
don't-
time. Maybe, can we have that meeting in closed session?
If it's to get legal advice, if you want my legal opinion on,
This is, we don't need to be in closed session.
Okay,
It's a,
all right,
it's
all
not, it's
Oh,
a,
let the
not a
open-
legal matter.
Okay, then we need to
That'd be
create
open.
a meeting. Okay,
I'm happy for us to convene separately.
okay,
But I think it's better that we do convene separately. It's too big an item for,
right. I just wanted to put it on the table to say
You
it's,
wanna drive an email? Just
I-
find
No,
out.
no, I
I'm gonna let
think,
you
no,
do
no,
that.
I think that
Okay.
first we should have a session for our citizens to hear from our council member and the planning board. And ask questions, just like they're doing. We don't have enough, first of all, there's no legislation. So we can't necessarily take a position on anything yet, till there's legislation. So I think that just like you like the idea is that we invite Andrew or invite the planning board to have a public meeting
the
here.
planning board is kind of useless right now. They have made their recommendation, they gave it, they're done. They gave it.
Okay,
to-
so then
to
who
the
do
council.
you, so then who do you want to invite to come to this
All
session?
3 planning committee members of the Northern come. So Andrew, well, who's the third?
Oh, Natalie.
All
and
3 of them.
Gonzalez.
Except those
They're
aren't
not
our
gonna come to
representatives.
They're not gonna come to our meeting.
They will not come to our meeting.
The only one who would come would be the ones that
Yeah,
we vote
large
Well, we
for.
members.
can invite
and
Roger
Andrew.
Under, we will come. He's council at large, right?
Well, we can
Well,
invite
that's what
all
I
of them.
said.
But I think this is, I just wonder if we just don't want to hear from our residents first before we have them.
I see no harm in us getting together to talk about this. No harm in that. Expressing what we understand, what we don't understand, where it might go. There's no harm in doing that. I think it's a good thing for us to
Okay,
do that.
I like that idea too.
And then we can do that very quickly and in parallel try and plan a meeting with inviting Andrew and potentially Will for town session.
Let's see what happens Wednesday night.
Yeah.
He might not want to come out after Wednesday. He's gonna say, I did it.
He seems to have a fix.
Yeah, well, he does. He has to.
All right,
All right,
adjourn,
sure.
Robert?
We're all done, no other items?
EJ, I'll work with you on.
Well, that's the motion to adjourn?
Second.
We're
Second.
adjourned. Okay, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
So